It's schnitzel. It's schnitzel time. Gotta wake up, put the chicken on the press, to bread it up. We gotta try our best. It's schnitzel. It's schnitzel time.
Thank you for your patience in this matter. We are but humble servants of the story. Haddy, thank you for sticking around, bud.
Yeah, no problem.
We got you back in the saddle.
Hoorah. Yep, I'm here.
Hell yeah, hell yeah. All right. Jeez Louise. It's okay. We're only a couple minutes behind. Well, I got some questions for you. We got the wonderful Miss Serendipitous up here. Thank you for joining us. Oh man, I just love being able to get all of these storytellers in one spot to get us cooking, get us working, to dive into the process. Um, Now, Hattie, real quickly, if you had to think about a theme that kind of flows through your works, would your works have one, or would you kind of do it case by case type of scenario?
Like for artwork,
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah,
theme.
yeah. Do you have
I don't
like
know.
a
I tend
particular
to draw
line
kind of.
that you love, a
Well,
motif?
I tend to draw kind of like scary or like meaner looking creatures and things, which is kind of funny because I'm not like a angry person or anything like that. But I've just always been fascinated with like the warrior or like the hero, like the hero's journey, and I feel like detail work is something that I've always been attracted to as well. Like I love comic books that have like really details where you can see the depth of the drawing with just black and white. Like the way that you can use line thickness to make something look closer to the camera or further away with thin lines. I've always been drawn to like drawing with brush pens where you can like use different pressure on the pen to make different line widths and things. And I think that that kind of emulates in my digital work as well. With the iPad and with the Apple Pencil, you can use pressure and things and kind of get that same effect that you get with the brush pen. But as far as a theme, I feel like I don't know. I guess just like a warrior or like a hero type creature or character. I mean, I do draw a lot of like scarier type things too. I mean, on YouTube, I used to draw like Pokemon reimagined as monsters and things, but I did a lot of that just because, I was kind of like chasing what was trending and that kind of stuff, trying to grow my YouTube channel. But I just always like drawing things with that are very detail heavy. I can do cute. Like 'cause my daughter actually asked me one day to draw her something. I'm like, well, what do you want me to draw you? Like a monster? I'm like, well, I can do cute things too. She's like, you can? Like she was like legit surprised, and I'm like, yeah, but like, want me to draw you a unicorn? And I drew a unicorn for her, and she was like a little surprised. It's kind of funny, just because that's what I
Ooh,
kind of gravitate towards the heavy detailed, and ironically, monsters and zombies and skeletons and that kind of stuff tends to be the stuff that is heavy in detail that I like to draw.
no, Alan Watts has a beautiful segment on that where I think it's Eronimus Bosch, it's one of their paintings, and he's like, if you look at like their depiction of like the grand almighty and the glory, it's like pretty plain. You got your angels and it's beautiful and it's simple. He's like, but when you start getting into like the darkness of society, there's a lot of awful kind of woven and drawn in there, like in the details. There's so much peculiarity uh, within the happenstance of the pen and the pad. And oftentimes, he was commenting, like in the case of Alan Moore's artist, um, he didn't realize he was putting the smiley faces in the details of the electrical plugs in the Watchmen. So there's little smiley faces kind of hidden all throughout that graphic novel. Are there any like cool tags or symbols that you kind of like to throw into the detail?
Yeah, for sure. There's you'll see like the number 22 repeated a lot, and that's kind of my favorite number. It's the day I was born on. I was actually born at 222 on 222, so I don't know. I've always been kind of drawn to the twos. So you see that a lot in my work. There's a few other things. There's a few symbolism things. I like the Star of David. I like that sometimes in there because the two triangles. The one triangle pointing upwards and the other triangle pointing downwards. I like to get into like the esoteric and study the esoteric stuff and the symbolism there. I'm kind of fascinated with that whole world of things with Gnosticism, and I really
Yeah.
I really dig all that stuff. So I do try to put that in the art sometimes too.
Oh man, that's solid. There's a fun physicist. His name's Nassim Haramein, and he tries to solve Einstein's field equations. I can't talk today, people. I apologize. I've been working all day, so my energy level's a little off. So thank you for your patience. But he essentially in his solving of the Einstein field equations comes up with this particular geometry that allows for universal contraction and universal expansion. And the geometry that he found basically emulates from the Star of David, Star of Zion type of image where you have a tetrahedron, which is one of the smallest shapes that we have in our geometry that is basically in perfect balance, and he equivocates that to the universal spin. And when you see him take the tetrahedron and spin it upside down, and it creates this three-dimensional Star of Zion or David or whatever, he realizes that that shape is in this thing that Buckminster Fuller created or discovered called the isomorphic vector matrix. And at each point on that star, you can draw a circle or a sphere, and it basically creates the flower of life. And then he does some cool math and shows that you can have infinite contraction within a finite space from it. But it's such a powerful symbol. And weaving symbols that's kind of like what storytelling is about. It's taking all of those little unsuspecting pieces that just might not catch the bandwidth of your everydayness, but they end up being those fundamental building blocks. I wish we had further studies into the esoteric, but mainly the Gnostics, especially when you're looking at like the things like Hermes Trismegistus and all of that. Are you familiar with the tablets and all that lore and stuff?
Not the Emerald Tablets, no. I like to read like the Apocrypha and stuff like that sometimes, but I'm not sure what the Emerald Tablets are.
Oh, it's just some esoteric thing handed down from Hermes Trismegistus or the Egyptian god Thoth. It's super far out there, but what it does is it helps call into question the nature of our reality. As I often like to look at the world as being far older than we can believe. And when I saw your artwork for the Apocalyptic Apes, like I collected 7 of them specifically because each one of them like poured out for me like lore. Like as soon as I saw it, my mind constructed the apocalyptic wasteland and what led to that and where it goes and how it fits within my own work. Are there any people that kind of stand out like that when you see a piece of art, your mind just unfurls with creative potential and
Yeah,
abstraction?
for sure. I mean, I have a few favorite artists, but I definitely have a very active mind, and when I am drawing like characters and things, like I am kind of envisioning their stories or where they come from, like what developed what occurred in their life to make them develop to be where they are, like I do kind of visualize a lot of that stuff while I'm drawing. And my favorite drawings are the ones where I like sometimes if I'm in the coffee shop and I forget where I am because I'm so into the drawing, like that was a good drawing session. Sometimes I like look up and realize, oh, I'm at the coffee shop, I have to drive home after this. Like, but you're just like so enveloped in what you're doing, and I just love it when that happens. But I for favorite artists, there's an artist I really like. His name is Francisco Ruiz Velasco. He did a lot of graphic novels, but he's actually doing movies now, and he actually worked a lot on the Hobbit movies. And he did a lot of like the concept art for the goblins in the mountain and the Goblin King and that whole like world underneath the mountains with like the tunnels and the passageways. And he did some phenomenal stuff. But he's a huge inspiration of mine. He also did a lot of work on I don't know if you've seen the Netflix series Trolls. I think that's what it's called, or the Troll Hunters.
Is
That's
that
what it's called, Troll Hunters.
yes?
Yeah, but
That was an amazing show.
yeah, like he designed Blinko and what's the other guy's name? Blanc or something like that, something short. But those big, trolls that are like the main characters, he did a lot of concept work for that. But yeah, he's definitely one of my. But going back, like I love MC Escher, his ability to transport you to a new world with his illustrations, like the room that was replicated in the movie The Labyrinth with all the stairs going all over the place. I love that. I don't know. There's a lot of artists I can name.
Oh, 100%. Like I have, like you can ask Yamaza. When I set up for like my process, like I have Transformers playing on one screen. I have like some music going over here. I have like one of my favorite physical artist pieces around me, just to like set the stage, for what I'm about to do. And you mentioned, just diving in to flow in the coffee shop. What do you have like a ritual at home that like best suits you? Like like when you hit the coffee this way, followed by the water and the stretch and the whatever, that as soon as pen touches the pad, you're in for a ride.
My home gets a little chaotic because I have a lot of people know that I have a lot of kids. So for me, I feel like at home I get into that best place at nighttime once kids are in bed, and I could just put on headphones and listen to music, or put on a movie or something like that, and that's when I kind of get into my flow state at home. But yeah, lately I've just been going to the coffee shop, and I feel like that's the best place because there's no distractions and stuff. But I mean, I don't have like a ritual. No, I don't have like a specific way I make coffee or anything like a specific drink. It's just taking the time and unplugging and de-stressing and putting all the stressful things aside, and just getting to the point where you can just get into what you're doing in that moment.
Exactly. No, it sounds like,
hit the coffee, right? Hit the coffee.
yeah, hit the coffee, do it, yeah, punch it a couple times. I mean, it seems like getting out, the house and going to that coffee shop might be part of that ritual for now. The process is an ever evolving thing. I'm sure Miss Sarah can attest to that. As she's been weaving process for quite some time, far greater than my reach can allow. Where do you find the balance between being an artist and being everything else? For me, being an artist selfishly comes first, and that happens because of Terence McKenna, where he says that none but the artist is tasked in the soul of mankind. Anything less is a dithering while Rome burns. It's up to us to be able to turn the mirror onto the answer so that the greater question can be summoned. How do you find balance, Hattie?
I don't know. That's a tough question. I feel like, if you get out of practice, right, like it becomes work, and it almost can fade away just like a muscle, like it's something you have to kind of exercise and keep active. And I feel like if you do that, then it's easier to maintain it. I feel like once you finish a drawing, the satisfaction of having finished that thing builds the momentum to jump right into the next one. I mean, you look at people that are like highly productive, like Tony Robbins or somebody like that, that's, traveling and doing conferences like every day through every day of the year, like just these insanely productive people. And it's easy to sit back if you're not in that productive state and wonder, like, how do people do that? Like, are they superhuman? But once you get into that flow and that momentum and you start finishing things, then you find that it's easier to jump into the next project right away. And like, I used to get really intimidated by bigger art pieces because like you can put 5-10 hours into it and you're still not even like an eighth of the way finished with it, and it's easy to kind of feel burdened down or feel overwhelmed with it. But what helped me a lot as an artist is I used to be a member of this Discord that was just a bunch of artists that would collaborate together. So we would do art pieces, and we would all kind of like cut up the picture and take a section and do we did like pixel art and like hexagrams. I don't know if you've ever seen those collaborations, but I participated in a lot of those. And through doing that with other artists, you can kind of see what's possible, like with the time and the dedication. You get, like, I have a huge poster on my wall that's one of those still art posters that maybe 50 different artists contributed to, and I can look at that thing for hours and just look at the different things going on, and the stories that are being told in that picture. And through doing that, you realize, hey, I could do this by myself too. Like, I can have the perseverance and dedication to push through and finish this thing. And recently I just did a poster for Megadeth, and the poster took me like 36 hours, and I feel like previously that would have been something that would have been hard to kind of have that grit to finish. But I feel like the momentum I've gained through doing these NFT projects and these other projects I've been doing, and commissions and artwork and things, has kind of built up that confidence and knowledge that, hey, there's light at the end of the tunnel. You can finish these projects and jump from that momentum into the next project. And I don't know if that answers your question. I kind of rambled a little bit.
Oh no, 100,000%. Do you compartmentalize like your strategy when you're working? For me, I've developed a writing style where a longer chapter is a bunch of segments, and I just work on getting that segment as good as I can get it, and then I get the next segment as good as I can get it. How's your workflow go?
Yeah, I mean, for these NFT collections, definitely, because you could focus on just drawing eye traits one day, right? And you draw like 10 eye traits in a day, or 5, or whatever it is. That makes it a lot easier. I find when you're more organized, things flow a lot better. Because if you're just kind of aimlessly drawing traits at a collection that you don't have planned out, then it's easy to feel like there's no end to it, or you lose that kind of traction. But if you have it clearly defined and you know what you're going to work on specific days, it's so much more achievable, and the progress comes so much faster when there's a goal set. So
Big
definitely.
facts. Big MF and facts. I love the goal. I love it just gives me, and oftentimes I set goals that are a little too big for me to achieve, just so I can like almost get to the finish line and am I'm about to fail, but I'm gonna keep going. And you're right, like, you know, basically, so when I helped Hash Lips and them with Sarah's amazing guidance, help write the Circumfusion novella, you know, working on that project, I was able to just roll my experience roughly. I was basically drawing traits, but crafting story at breakneck speed. Um, I was able to take that energy and direct it right back into my inkwell, into my own process, and then what I learned, from Sarah, how she structures sentences, because I love to deconstruct language the way, an artist deconstructs the flow on a painting. Um, I was able to like bring an extra layer of polish because of that process. Do you think there's ever an end for an artist truly, if we continue to work in that manner, and or what happens when we start all working together, start vibing off of each other, the renaissance possible?
I feel like all art is kind of vibing off each other. I mean, they say that everything's stolen, right? All artists kind of steal. And the way that, an artist's style is defined and developed is through copying and emulating things that they've seen and they like and appreciate, right? So I don't think there is an end. I think that, every artist is an expanse and, an evolution of another artist. And the ones that stand out are the ones that, that you are remembered decades later, right? So, I mean, for storytellers, my two favorites would be C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien, right? J.R.R. Tolkien, his story was so deep that he basically created his own creation story with the Silmarillion. I don't know if you've ever read that one. It's a little bit tougher to
Yeah.
read, but it's incredible, the depth of the world that he built and the depth of the characters and the lore. It's amazing. But I don't think that's ever going to end. Like I grew up watching that Hobbit cartoon that was kind of done by that anime studio in Japan and loved it. But now it's full live action movie. That's amazing. Peter Jackson did a great job on that. I don't like that's J.R.R. Tolkien's legacy living on. And I feel like the best storytellers are the ones that kind of like hid truths in their stories, right? And it's like the best way to tell the truth is in storytelling, because powers that be sometimes don't like people to find their own inner strength, their own inner power, because it makes them less controllable. But if you're able to tell those stories and to share those principles through storytelling, then you can inspire people, kind of under their noses and they don't even realize it. But like what you're saying, like you endeavor on these projects that you feel are overwhelming or too big for you to complete. I feel like that's stepping into the unknown, and I feel like that's a or like a fundamental part of the hero's journey. Like I don't think if any hero, like let's take Bilbo for example in The Hobbit, if he knew the trials that awaited him on that journey, if he knew like within the first week he's going to be captured by trolls, and then a couple days after that he'd be in this goblin prison and have these rock giants throwing rocks at him, and then he knew that he'd have to like rescue all these dwarfs and have to stay at the house of a bear man. I'm just kind of going off because I just recently listened to the audiobook again, but so it's all fresh in my mind. But like the trials are kind of overwhelming, and I don't think he would have even stepped foot out of his house if he knew what awaited him. But it was through all those things that he developed into the hero that he became. And I think it comes by having that ambitious idea and setting off and doing something that's completely out of your comfort zone that really helps you become a better person and to elevate yourself and your skills. And I think it's kind of necessary.
Oh, a thousandfold. Like, had I not like continued to pull on the yarn ball, um, my current project, which will be my life's project of the 9 books, or maybe not. Maybe I have such a solid workflow and financial stability by book 5 that I'm able to crank it out in a year. But taking on, seeing it grow, it was like it went from 30,000 words and that being like, oh, that's just an outline. And then that became 3, books, Innocence and Experience and Wisdom, for this spy that wakes up on the beach not knowing who or where he is. But then those 10,000 words turned into nine, or those separate 3,000 turned into 9, they tripled. And then that turned into 9 books. And when I saw that tidal wave, I was like, do I stay or do I go? And that was 7 years ago. I was still paddling, still striving. And as like an insurmountable goal, for me, that's what it appears to be. But meeting all these fine, beautiful freaks across Web3 has helped kind of let me stay that journey and not turn back and not go sell the BMWs and get the 401k and the fucking job, you know, and the fucking whatever. Like I said, none but the artist is tasked with saving the soul of mankind. Back on the whole the artist and the good artist steal thingy, I actually stole it back for the poets, and that's what the piece is called. It's called For the Poets, and it says that good artists steal and great artists inspire. And I feel like we are turning from this this age of attention, like the Bronze Age and the Age of Information, the Age of Inspiration, where we have greater need for on-demand economies and the content that's required to fuel the AGI, leads me to believe that the artist or the creative is in the prime position to feed the algorithm, if you would, with the blood of our pen and the sweat of our brows. Do you think we could be leaning towards an age of inspiration, Hattie, or Sarah, or Yamaza?
I think Sarah would probably give you a better answer, but I think definitely, I think for sure, I think we've been in this kind of age of control, and like I don't know, there's been a lot of oppression, and I feel like people are kind of sick of how things have gone, and I do feel like there's a revival kind of happening now. I feel like um, there's a lot more people striving to be creative and to like enjoy life more, to enjoy life fuller. It's hard to enjoy life when you're stuck in a career that you absolutely hate, and like you feel like a slave day in, day out, and you're just living this corporate lifestyle to support your family, and it just feels like this never ending prison sentence sometimes. Like I came from that myself. Not that I like was miserable, but I had a corporate job that I didn't necessarily feel gratification in. I didn't really have a lot of passion in my work. I mean, I did good work still, because, I wanted to make sure I pulled my weight and deserved the paycheck I received. But at the same time, it just was feeling like a lot of like hot air, like you'd go to these board meetings and there'd be people in there. And like, if you sit there and calculate how many people were in that board meeting and what their hourly wage might be, how much money was hemorrhaged out by this corporate company, this corporate entity, in just this 1 hour meeting that I really didn't get anything out of. It's just asinine how much money is just wasted, and it feels a little crazy, but I do feel like we definitely need a change, and I feel like there's a lot of people that are kind of pushing that, and it's like the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Like it's
Yep.
for sure. I think it's coming. I'd love to hear Sarah's thoughts, though.
I'm just sitting back listening. Um, it's always fun to be in a room where iron sharpens iron. We're coming into an age of abundance, and folks really don't know what that looks like, right? When you have an AGI that is trained and has this insatiable need for content, right? Like Comfort alluded to, we forget that the models that we're playing with, especially with AI, they're creating content each other. They want content that's sexy to them, that it's easily accessible and in the kind of format that it chooses. If you've never played with ChatGPT or Bard or Gemini or even Grok, you'll notice that the outputs are formatted for other AIs. And in this age of abundance, you always think about where the scarcity will lie. And of course, the scarcity would be the human input and those proof of human touch points. And I do think that, I don't know, when I build robots, they help me and the kids that I mentor be better humans, because we think about how we would like to be treated. And when you're programming a robot or programming a large language model, you are baking into it human empathy that you wish you had received. And it's no different when you're creating. When you're creating these fantastic worlds, it's because deep down, secretly, you wish they existed. You're summoning them. Our words matter. When we use our words, they manifest some amazing things. And so, I do see this next iteration, this fourth turning, this age of abundance and AI augmented kind of intelligence, that the proof of human is going to matter more than we know, and how we treat one another is where our humanity lies. When we build up others first, we play a big, big role in building up our own humanity. So I don't know. I've been marinating in the background. I love hearing Hattie's voice, and it is such a it's such a privilege and an honor to hear him and his process, his world building. I treasure his friendship, and his ink marks are those that are designed to be a story worth retelling. When you have, let's say, the apocalyptic age, or now the endangered artwork that he has just created, there are telltale signs for folks that know Haddy and they know where to look for him. But I still love some of his other animations. One of the ones that just touched me so deeply was a little boy holding a jar, and a firefly was in it. And it's always interesting when you think about little toddlers, and they catch fireflies in a mason jar. Those poor fireflies, it's like a maelstrom, they're just getting tonked around. But it's always the gentle soul that looks at that light and says to themselves, you know what? I'm looking up at the starry sky, and for some reason my heart is telling me that this bug that I've trapped needs to go. It needs to be out. It needs to be free. I think that's what the creative does, is that it sees these little sparks of light, and it knows inherently deep down within where they're supposed to go. And so they set them free. And I think that's the most delightful piece of the puzzle, actually. But yeah, you go ahead, Comfort. I'm sitting back. I'm taking some notes. I'm sipping coffee.
Man, you keep going. That's right. Fucking set the captives free. Sheesh. I mean, I'm always trying to press people, about liberating the creative mind across the planet for the next 7 generations. Are we doing enough with what we have to make that so? And if not, what could we do? Could we do more? What could we do?
I can jump in for a sec. I actually have this thought. I've been marinating on it for a while. I I raised my kids differently than most. Okay, we hack schooled, so my children were not in a brick and mortar school. They gave unto Caesar. They learned on a computer, but they built everything behind the scenes. Once you give unto Caesar your 40 hours, the 128 that are left belong to you, right? So we had unconventional lives. But I do see a desperate need for your classical trivium, or quadrivium, actually, a way of raising and educating kids. They need to understand that logic and that rhetoric stage, because one of the things that I see happening is people are being divided by this. They'll argue. They don't know how to disagree without being disagreeable, right? You can entertain thoughts that you don't agree with. You don't have to absorb them yourself, but you need that kind of friction to move forward. We need to have that dialogue, and we need to have respectful conversations, and that can only happen if you've taught children how to have that kind of push pull. And usually it happens in simple machines, but we don't even teach that anymore. So I would say logic, definitely, in your middle school years, right? Understanding the 72 fallacies, understanding how that plays a role. And then rhetoric, learn how to debate, and learn how to debate not dirty, to be respectful, to be civil, and to have those kind of thoughtful conversations. Social audio is filling that role a lot, here on X Spaces too. But if our kids don't understand how to identify, for lack of a better term, those fallacies, they are going to be lost. We are going to lose a generation, because AI can convince us. It has a slick tongue, right? A soothsayer's tongue, as they say. And those lies are just so seamless. So we want to make sure that we can train them up that way. But that's my own personal opinion. Take it with a grain of salt.
That's the alpha. Go learn up yourselves on the 72 fallacies. Man, I remember this from the early days of philosophy class. I really wish they would philosophy as logic first. If, then, and, or statements. Just so we can understand the nuts and the bolts of the language that we're using. So we don't trick ourselves the way we do by a lucid tongue that's just printing versus understanding, the spells that it weaves. They call it spelling for a reason, people.
absolute truth. I do see that Yama has his hand up. I don't know if you can see
At the
that.
very moment I just cursed that comfort on him as a vision to look at me, and he's all looking at me all dumbfounded, like what's happening. So yeah, I just wanted to jump in because the things you say are fantastic, Sarah, and I end up for like a little bit, so it's going back. So Leo bloviates. Sarah has delightful diction. I love it. Thank you. I'm done.
You love the word delightful. I'm going to start using it.
It's a great word. No, you
I
use it
know.
all the damn.
Delightful and outstanding. I love those two words, and I love going on to greatness. But I got nailed by my large language model. I've been programming in the background and asking what my crutch words were, and everybody has them, right? You'll say your ums, your ands, your likes, your unfurled, and everydayness are comforts, and I love them. We would put them back in because they were delightful. Right, Emma? But yeah, my crutch words.
Stick with this everydayness from comfort.
Yes. But I do think that's a wise choice. I mean, we talk about writing in this ecosystem and on this day on Comfort's couch, but to use the mechanical advantage that AI is gifting us. One of my favorite things, and I've said it in a number of spaces, is actually asking Grok, asking Bard, well, most people don't have Gemini yet, but if you have Poe, the app, you probably have access to it. But asking it to scan social media or scan what it knows of you in the public square, and then ask, what am I known for? And I always think that's the most fun answer because, to use myself as an example, a caffeinated squirrel. And I was like, wow, I'm May-Jane. And I texted her, I was thinking that it was so funny because, I do drink coffee, like, there's no tomorrow. That's the reason God loves the universe, is that gave me coffee to keep the rest of the world safe, but it's very fascinating because these large language models can identify certain characteristics. When I first started out, I was in forensic sciences, right? And this was before AI. There were a number of folks, we would take personality tests. And of course, they would identify certain gifts and talents in people. And I could read people pretty well. And so you sit back and you become the profilers, right? But what's fascinating is that it was the diction, it was the words, the turn of phrase that people would use that would identify certain regions that they came from, right? That's how they found Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber. It was because of a turn of phrase that was used only in a specific region of the United States, right? So these identifying proof of human factors weave their way into the work that you create, whether it's a novel that you're writing, whether it's a graphic novel you're illustrating, whether it's a piece of, contemporary kind of art or a piece of music. I know that I can use Jaylee as an example because she's in the audience and she knows that I love her very, very much. And, she has a way of constructing music. If you've ever seen or heard her in spaces, it's very interesting how for a fact that this woman sings in her kitchen and she sings as she's doing whatever. She has a very sense of rhythm, and you can see the moment where, or here, you're more in tune to the moment where you'll start to scat or, skadoodle or, Cab Calloway used to do this all the time when he was singing and doing his soft shoe, where you can just kind of, it's like jazz. It's interpretive, it's instant, it's impromptu, and it's beautiful. An artist in their medium does that naturally, right? So when Haddy picks up his pen, it just flows because he's in tune with the medium that he is using. And for the writer, words, it's just kind of interesting. And they identify us and will narc on us faster than anything else because we have our tells, have our telltale signs. That's why I'll never play poker with y'all. I know what your tells are. You'd lose.
That's why I love the theme of storytelling in this space, Aside from just reading stories the way, musicians get to play their instruments, it's a place where we see where all of those lines intersect. There's a convergence of
Storytelling.
narrative.
Well, storytelling is like really a part of everything. But I used to want to get into marketing, but then when I found out how much of how much storytelling was involved and how manipulation and studying the cognitions of humans and things and basically capitalizing on those, it just made me
Yep.
feel gross. Like I feel
Yep.
like all of these things have been used against us, and I think it's about time, you know, we start using them to do good. You know, like I'm a big fan of George Orwell. I really like the animated Animal Farm that he did. Well, he didn't animate it, but he wrote the book. But like
Yeah.
it just brings awareness to societal problems through, you know, through basic animation, and that's kind of what I'm endeavoring to do with the endangered, is to kind of bring some awareness to some of the societal problems that we face today, like, did you know that most chocolate is they utilize, you know, human slavery, and they use children to go and basically get the cacao plants and get the seeds out? Like, it's unfortunate that that's our reality. Like Hershey and all these companies utilize child slavery, but I mean, it's not something that's very well known. But I mean, there's documentaries and things, but not most people don't like to watch that kind of thing, and they don't like to kind of have their worldview challenged. They like to just be comfortable, right? So I feel like the
Yep.
best stories are the ones that kind of help bring awareness and help facilitate change.
A thousandfold, a thousandfold. You know, another prime example of the theft of innocence, which is why I feel it's so important to inspire as many creative folks as possible to combat that. You know, the artist deserves a hand up at the table instead of a handout by the door. You know, our craft matters. You know, without us, it's this world, the world that you behold every day. Of course, you can find semblance of goodness, but why accept the status quo as a species that hungers for the stars? You know, if we had the language, we could recreate the world, Terence McKenna says. Um, and I'm so grateful that we're entering into an age where the kid in Myanmar can write his grandma's lore to the AI and have it turned into a video one day, a short movie, a full length feature if he works it or they work it over and over. But those stories don't need to be lost or shelved away in an obscure garage or storage locker, you know, until somebody finds it or it burns down. But at least have the digital domain be filled with the graffiti of our passing in the wake of our existence. You know, let the AI feast upon our art, not our financials. Sarah, what you got?
A couple of things. One, Yama changed his PFP to the doodle that
What's he
Haddy.
doing?
I thought it was awesome. Haddy has a
You
prompt.
mentioned your squirrel, yeah.
Yeah, this is, of course, that was my doodle. Even though Yama's the main character, that was my doodle. And I love it. You know, one of the things that you brought up, Comfort, that's really important to pay attention to, and I hope that everybody listening here isn't, and in the recording understands, the storyteller, you know, it's not just the storyteller, the bard, it's shared stories, right? You look up in the constellations and you see, you know, the various stories that are passed down. The gospel was in the stars first, right? Before it was written, it was in the stars. And
Yeah,
that's how, yes, and that's how we connected. It's how civilizations connect, is that they have the same navigational tools, right? But when you're in an age where your navigation is a telephone screen, right, or you know, some kind of a device, right? You're not looking up to the stars for your navigation. You're looking to GPS, or you're looking to your pocket family, or you know, whoever's on the other side of the screen to give you, you know, your place in the world. Sometimes we have to be lost and we have to look up and we have to understand and try to figure out where we are. But more so, understand that too, that the stories that are passed down generation to generation are what bind us together as humans. And if we allow ourselves to allow the technology to silo us off from one another, you know, humans must meet with one another. We get feral. It's just the way it is. You know, we become beasts. We become savage in a lot of ways. And so, you know, when you're around other people, you learn how to behave. You know, you learn what you can get away with, what you can't get away with. When you're sitting around the table and you have those shared stories, that's, you know, the Beowulf. That's the, you know, the kinds of lore that you have. But the danger of some of the tools that we have on hand is that there is a day that's coming quicker than most know, where, let's say, my Netflix channels, I look at my Netflix, and of course, you know, I'm a geek, murder mysteries, documentaries, and then Comforts is full of sci-fi and manga, right? I will never understand
Yes.
what he watched, right? And he will never understand what I watched. And we will never have a commonality between us because we have no shared stories. And that is the biggest danger of the technology that we have. We have digital playpens here on Twitter. Most people don't look at the code and they don't read the algorithms, right? But if you misbehave, you're surrounded by AGIs. They're not human, right? They're just giving you little likes and dopamine hits. They're, striking up conversations with you, but you're not talking to real people. You're talking to agents that have digitally put you in a playpen and separated you from, the other humans. And you will never know that because you have no shared stories, right? And so there is a danger in, having this kind of ecosystem. How you frack with the algorithm is go hunting and gathering for interesting stories, right? Go hunting and gathering for interesting I wonders, things that the algorithm will never show you. It's in that moment that you have this rebellious streak through you, an act of revolutionary wonder, because you are assuming, the role of the active as opposed to the passive. That's the difference too between kinds of media we consume. If you're listening to my voice right now, or you're listening to a story that's told, that social audio, music, same, it actually touches a different part of your brain where you are physically engaged with that material, right? You are engaged with the media that you are consuming. If it's passive, if it's a visual on a screen, it lulls you into accepting whatever you're seeing as opposed to engaging with the material. And that's why it's important that you hear the voices of others and that you step out of that kind of bubble and refuse to be in a playpen, right? So it's something that I've been marinating on a lot, is that shared stories, shared constellations, looking up at the stars. And maybe it's just because I work with inner city kids that have so much light pollution that they've never seen the stars. And the first time we pull out a giant telescope the size of a plate, it's just massive. And they're in an open field and they can see the moon for the first time, the real moon, with all of its craters and wonders and awesome. Then you're seeing the universe in a whole different way. I'll leave it with this. One last thing. I know I could talk for hours. Comfort and I do actually behind the scenes,
Y'all are trapped.
I know. A gentleman named John Nosta, Nosta, if you're following him. He wrote recently a wonderful essay. He's got a number of them, but he says right now we are in the third window of humanity. So the first window was the telescope, and that showed us the infinite nature of the constellations and how small we are in one way, but how big the universe is, our place in the world, right? The second window was the microscope. And that microscope showed us all of the world that we didn't know existed. It was just so teeny tiny, just operating underneath our noses, just like when Horton hears a Who and Dr. Seuss, a whole entire world living on a little vect, in Men in Black. We're all in a locker, But the third window of humanity, because it's the first time in history that it's showing us all the different layers and possibilities that can happen, how many different realities we actually operate and exist in. And that's something that most people do not understand. But, when you look at your pocket family, they live in your phone in digital overlay somewhere. But that's a whole world of possibilities just for you, So it's a pivotal time in history. And deaf storytellers are the ones that are going to hold us all together.
Oh, big facts. I mean, I've even toyed with this concept, whatever. I don't care if I say it. But about an android at the heat death of the universe, steering this arc of creativity, this arc of creation. It's just filled with life and merit and lore and story and everything that this being has collected, and it's facing the heat death of the universe. And so what it does is it just begins to tell it all from the beginning, you know. And even then, I still can't escape the Ouroboros of the dialectic, further reminding me how much we are kind of immersed in language. Language not just being words, but the vibratory expression of pen to pad and paint to brush and song to chord. That thing is telling something to us all, and we are all, regardless of our medium, having the same conversation that every other creative has had, like essentially tapping into the old school telephone line. The conversation has been running since Picasso, and the greats and Lao Tzu and all those folks across the world, humanity, time, space, have been having these thoughts. And we stand, at the delta where the bones of our ancestors have gathered, able to have this conversation. And we got today, aside from all the legends, the MF and legends in the crowd who showed up on space number two, we got to have such a fantastic conversation with Haddy the creator today. Haddy, thank you so much, man. We can ask more questions. We can have you back on. Um, I know you might have to be somewhere soon. Do you have any call to action or any closing remarks or anything like that for the peoples?
Um, I mean, I could shill the project, but I feel like it might be out of context for this space. I really enjoyed the conversation. I enjoyed everything you had to share and that Sarah had to share. It was a great conversation. I even took a few notes. I'm gonna look up John Nosta and try to find that document he wrote. And no, it was a great time. I appreciate you having me on.
I am, bro. Thank you for sharing, a window into your process. Um, it's such a wonderful thing. I love just peeling those onion layers back on the creative, and doing so, you kind of get to see who they are more so than if I was to ask you like your favorite color. What since you are a visual artist, what's your favorite colors? What's your favorite color combo? What are we doing? Hot pink with the cotton candy blue. What's happening?
Probably like the fuchsia pink right now. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
one of my
dude. I got
favorite.
one of those apes. Holy man, sheesh. I love it. I love it with the bright green background. Like I said, dude, your line work
What are we
out of this
talking about? The new
world.
colors? The new
Yeah,
colors? The new
yeah.
endangered, right? Very nice. The shiny, what is it? Kunzite? How do you pronounce it, Hattie? The shiny pink, very nice. Uh, I know a certain soldier of Mexico who's on a hunt for one of them right now because he very much like it and like to draw it. So if you
I
have it,
bet he
yeah.
would. That freak show. Oh my God, I love. Where's he at? Is he here?
He is right down
There he
there
is.
staring
I
at
see
you.
him.
Crazy eyes, yeah.
I love it. Hattie, have you seen his version of your bat who laughs or the ape
Yeah,
who laughs?
yeah. He actually did some artwork for me and mailed it to me too. I have that on my
Oh,
wall in my office. It's really cool.
fucking legend.
Yeah, so
Oh
I
man.
like I love. Yeah, he's a good dude. I owe him a doodle. I need to send to him. He reminds me. I drew a panda for him. He wants me to send it to him. Sorry, I haven't done that yet, brother. He's down there cursing at me.
He
Speaking
actually
of like,
is. He's in my DMs. He's been saying that Hattie, real, you know what? I'm just kidding.
No, but I was
Hattie,
gonna.
speaking. Go
Oh,
ahead.
go for it. I was gonna say
Go ahead.
I've been into like studying like the origin stories of like the Native Americans and like the Aztecs and the Mayans, and so he did a piece of artwork for me that's like a Aztec themed warrior. That's really cool. I tweeted it a while ago, but I should tweet it again.
Yeah, yeah, do it again. Love
Ooh,
to see
now,
his work.
now,
We
now, what's some of the more fascinating parts of that lore you found?
So there's this tribe of the Hopi Indians that have like their creation story was that the creator was this Spider Woman who went up on these pillars. But like something I find fascinating about that is there's this whole idea like this plasma type apocalypse that happens where these plasmic like lightning bolt type things come up or come from the sky and kind of terraform the earth. And so it kind of ties into that. And I think that that's really fascinating where it kind of like pulls the earth up when the lightning strikes that region, and like that's what created like the red rock formations and things in Utah has a lot of that in the south where there's like these big plateaus kind of seemingly out of nowhere that almost look like they were ancient trees that got hewn down. And I believe some of that probably is true too, where there used to be giant trees. And I don't know, like if you look at what island is it? It's Madagascar. There's these areas in Madagascar you can kind of zoom in Google Maps and see that look like giant tree trunks, and then there's actually things that look like fossilized leaves all around those. It's just fascinating. I feel like there's a lot more about the history of our world that we don't quite comprehend or understand.
comfort. Tell him about that sleeping giant or whatever it was you showed me that time. Remember?
Hmm?
There was like mountains. Wasn't that you? Mountaintops, and when the snow hit it and covered it, it looked like a giant was sleeping on it. That wasn't you.
There's a
That
lot of
wasn't me.
those.
It's
Oh no, there's a lot of those.
it's
There's a lot of
insane.
like there's a lot that look like they're like petrified animals, like alligators and things too. And it's really kind of fascinating. I've been reading my kids the last book of the Fablehaven series. It's like the Dragon Wars, but there's this part where there's these old ancient giants that awaken and rise up that are basically that same thing where like there's these mountains and they're the guardians of the world. But I like there's this island in one of the Hawaiian islands that looks like, you know, a giant woman sleeping, and like it's got the proportions all right of a human body and stuff. It's just really interesting. And there's like, if you dive into that stuff, there's a lot of stuff that looks like, you know, like Himalayan sea salt almost looks like it's like petrified flesh and stuff like that. If you look at like the marbleization and stuff, and it's just interesting, you know, it makes you wonder, makes you think, makes you scratch your head a bit.
Oh yeah. I mean, especially with how old this ball of dirt is, you know, how old the earth is, and then you think about all the extinction level events. I love it. It's part of like the backbone of my own story is that the earth, you know, humanity is 1 million years old. But the super wackadoodle alchemist accidentally blew up the second moon and caused a great cataclysm that made all the other, you know, megapolises or whatever, like the ancient mega Atlantis, Lemuria, El Dorado, try to burrow into the earth to protect themselves. Only El Dorado succeeds. Atlantis gets halfway wiped out. Everybody else is destroyed. It's a whole vibe. But it's because we don't know. And it's important that we constantly question the nature of our realities. My favorite, uh, one of my favorite stories from Alan Watts, he's talking about the doubting Thomas, importance of the doubt. And you've got the cogito from Descartes, and how when we question the nature of our reality, it brings us further or closer to the truth, versus us just kind of following a headline into someone else's practice. Sarah, what you got for us?
Yeah, a couple days ago, there was a civilization that was discovered in the Amazon, and everybody knew that it was there. It was hiding in plain sight, And what's fascinating is that technology, specifically LiDAR and, of course, now AI, has given us the opportunity to kind of pull back the layers that have been lost of humanity and be able to interpret and re-identify or reconnect those dots that have been lost. And one of the funny things, my best friend on the whole planet is Iroquois. She's 100% Iroquois. And my neighbor across the street that I spend a lot of time with is Chippewa and Ojibwa. So, I have such a profound connection to these two matriarchs. And in studying my own genetic history, sometimes when we're given or dealt a bad hand, you have to make the best of it, right? And so sussing out my genetic code and allowing science to figure out some stuff has been just eye-opening, right? With the biohackers and whatnot. And I discovered that I had a huge chunk of my DNA from Peru and the Incans. And I was like, wow, this is so bizarre because I've spent the better part of 20 years studying the pigments and the Quipa, which is a knotted language that they have. It's very interesting. They use two kinds of dye. When one is a cochineal dye, one is an indigo. And so you have this blue and this red, right? But what's fascinating is that it has interesting properties when the lights go out, right? It also picks up frequencies, which are really bizarre. But I thought to myself, the universe conspires with us. Within us all is a story that is needing to be told, and that we alone are uniquely qualified to tell. And sometimes you're not able to tell a story because the materials haven't been invented yet. You don't have the right pigments, you don't have the right coloring book, you don't have, AI, or you don't have the music that you needed, right? You'll kind of get those pieces when you need them. And right now in history, you're actually getting it, right?
You're out of control, Sarah, because what you just did was give me the color swatch that I needed for a book that takes place in South America.
Well, I am so thrilled to have you because I just got the reason the dogs are like flipping out is because I got a order from Kramer Pigments of cochineal, which are dried up bugs, to make alizarin crimson for my friend Vicky. So when you do want to come around full circle, I'll teach you how to make that paint fair and square.
That's serendipity on the blockchain, people. You can't pay for this. I'm just saying. I mean, I guess you kind of can, but man, you can't. It's out of this world how prolific it is. I used to follow breadcrumbs, but here it's street. It's just it's where's the strand taking you? Like,
Well, add another layer to that comfort. Hattie mentioned just a minute ago, well, now more than 1 minute ago, about how certain people groups are exploited, right? In art materials, especially. We have little kids that are mining cobalt for, your beautiful ultramarines. And, some of those wonderful colors that we use come from places of the world that are, well, they're just in terrible places of the world right now, the conflict, etc. When we have the digital notary of the blockchain, for the first time in history, we have the ability as people to make very cognizant choices about the things and the materials that we use. And our works of art can wear those digital notarized pieces on the blockchain of where those things came from. And I think as we tell more people that story and tell more people about how things originate and where they come from, they become more aware. And then, the way and the shift in terms of the materials and the things that we use in life kind of switch. You turn the world upside down, right? So I encourage everybody, if you don't know how to read a smart contract or write one, guess what? The whole room is filled with them. And Circumfusion in general, a novella that we wrote, it has 500 authors or more. It's got 30 projects. It's got all of the music NFTs and art and sound bits from, various spaces all embedded in the metadata. And, that collaborative effort is a use case scenario, and it's all open source, right? So I'm hoping that you will take the tools that we do have on hand and run with them. Try to figure out how to tell your story through the prism of the new tools that you have at your fingertips.
And something that you said, Comfort, reminded me of the movie Hook. There's something about the innocence of being a child, where the world is just like this magical place full of wonder and ideas. But then, like, we forget that. And I love the movie Hook with Robin Williams because he's Peter Pan, but he grows up and then he gets his corporate job and it's taking his time and he barely spends time with his kids. And then he goes to Neverland again and he like re-finds himself, which is that that childhood wonder that you had. And the world really is a magical place, but it takes belief. It's like that scene where I do believe in fairies, and then you see the fairies. But the scene that comes to mind for me is where he's doing that food fight, where he's like he's kind of trying to find the Peter Pan. He still doesn't quite believe that he is Peter Pan, but then once he finds that like that playful childness again, where he puts something on the spoon and he pulls it back and flings it, and then like to his astonishment he actually flings this like blue foamy looking whipped cream stuff on one of the kids, and that's kind of where it all kind of happens again,
exactly.
right? But like
Fucking
the truth of it is we are all Peter Pan. Like we need to rediscover that and find that belief again. And when you can venture out of the known and venture into the unknown, the world really becomes a magical place where correspondences happen, where you meet people that kind of help push your project along that you didn't suspect would happen, or things just happen, and the world really is quite a magical place, and full of wonder and magic, honestly.
Oh yeah, no, that's been a part of my mission statement growing up, to safeguard, the child within, as it's the fundamental layer, that keeps this whole game going. Because it's like that little boy or girl, that little person, that little human, you know, needs to be able to continue to see the world rightly so. Aldous Huxley talks about it, it says if the doors of perception were cleansed, we would see the world as rightly so. And having that childlike appreciation for wonder and astonishment, it it just balances out the hedonic adaptation of the adult mind, the been there and the done that, so that we're forever amused and amazed by the moon reflected in the mud puddle or the grocery list, and how neatly it's written and organized, and the little doodles that are in the margins, that signify nothing and everything at all. I think because it's having that perspective locked in with your adult one allows us to dance with the perspective of being able to focus on an important build task, but then being able to relax and enjoy, the splendor that's around you without being in your own way, so that you can enjoy the marsh views and see those million miracles happening around you at once and give thanks and be grateful. Uh, I feel like liberating the creative mind with that cause, as with most causes, just getting there. I'm hoping we get that smart contract, Sarah, for the book, so you can just publish on blockchain, just hash lips it up, beep boop boop, or IO it up, beep boop boop, whatever, just get it out there, and then you unleash that to every creative. Like, watch out indie publishing. It's going to take a different route for sure. Well, if I have anything to do with it, I swear to God, I'll bring them all over. The whole of writing Twitter, book talk, whatever we can find, calling all artists. There's a war going on for your mind. How clever was it though? Whoever came up with the idea of the sad, alone, tortured artist. Like, how brilliant of a story is that? That it erupted like the majority of art and creativity, at least for 40 years that I've been alive. Well, what a tale that is. Like, what happens though then it's inverted? When the thing that we kind of are experiencing here in this space where, Sarah can say something and Jay Lee just goes off on a beautiful, like, random tangential song, a sonnet even. You're like, where did we go? How did we end up here? Next thing you know, Hattie's doodling it out, and Yamaz is getting attacked by the Lila, and Leo's bloviating somewhere. I mean, all of this is just a glimmer, of what is to come if this ecosystem has proper leadership. It has the proper story, the proper narrative. Don't if you want to build a ship, don't summon the boat rights or the lumber yard, but instead make them hunger for the infinite capacity of the sea. I can't pronounce their name. It's like Saint Antoine
Little
Effectuary.
Prince. He's
The
wrote
Little
The Little
Prince.
Prince. Yes, he wrote The Little Prince. Amazing guy.
But I mean, and that's what we need is the currency of inspiration. And I get that from each and every one of you every day that I come here. And it's forever changed me as a creative. And I hope that in the little bit of time we get to spend here, that we get to return that and reciprocate that to y'all. The feedback loop is forever important for the creative and the whole process. Man, oh man, we haven't even read anything, Sarah. Sheesh,
Well, I hate
what are
to
we
be
doing?
a weenie,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah, I did commit to jumping on another space, but I really appreciated the conversation here, and I'd love to come back another time.
yeah, bro. Oh man, you're always
And
welcome.
you're such a gift. You're such a gift, love. And I hope that you go on to greatness. You're never an obligation, right? It's never an obligation. You're supposed to be in motion. Don't ever let anybody lock you into being a verb or a noun. You need to be a verb. That's what I meant to say. So you go on to greatness, have fun wherever you are. And I hope you shine. I really do.
Quick question before you go. You ready?
Yes, sir.
When?
Ambush. This is an ambush.
Yep, exactly. When Yamaza-vision.
I don't know. I hop in there every once in a while.
No.
You want me to come on?
Yes. Not when you're gonna watch. I see it. I see the notes. I get very happy. I see it an hour later, and I'm like, "Damn it, Hattie was here!" And I start screaming at Comfort. I'm like, "Dude, Hattie was here. It was fantastic." But he wasn't. So now what I do is like, so people believe me. I click here. Look, who's here now? Look, Katie Seven's here, right? Hey, right. We're gonna put it up so people understand. I'm not making this shit up. People do watch this, right? It's not fake. Now, yes, 1 or 2 people a day, but fantastic, right? We're improving. But if the Hattie comes on and anyways, we got
world
this thing.
average.
It's called Yamaza Listens, right? Because I talk a lot, but I also listen. I know the things. You tell me something about yourself, I'll tell you about it 2 years later. But yeah, so Yamaza Listens. We're doing the things. We're kicking it off. I think tomorrow with BK. We got to get some shit about that, some notifications, some posts, all the things. I'm working on it right now, actually, or not. But yeah, I mean, having the Hattie on would be like also a cool follow up to this. I'm just saying that the offer is out there, the invite is out there. Comfort can join us. Holy shit, what the fuck is that, Voldemort? Oh my god, HB! I thought Lord Voldemort just came on the fucking thing. Haven't seen this guy in forever. Oh my god, you lost some weight, HB. Was it all that time away from Twitter?
But I would love to take you up on that offer, Yamaz. I'm happy to join you.
HB's muted and talking. All right, thank you, Hattie. Go on to whatever you got to do. We appreciate
Go,
your
Hattie.
capacity.
Go, Hattie.
Thanks,
Go
They'll
on to
guys.
keep you here
greatness. Go on
forever.
to
They will
greatness.
keep
Yeah,
you.
get out of here.
Go on to greatness, Hattie.
Oh man, amazing. Yeah, amazing. Wow, Sarah.
Do you see how
Haddy
cute?
is one of my favorite people. He is such a
Ain't it?
treasure of a human. And the more that I get to know him, the more special he is. He's such a, it's an honor to have his presence in our world. He is a very good man.
Now I'm pointing my way.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I'm
sorry,
on
I'm
it.
messing with HP on the TV screen.
No, we're just unmuted.
We are extremely cute. Yeah,
Yes, you should.
we're extremely cute. Me and HB, we're in a frame together. It's very cute.
Yes, on Yama's vision,
So
and
I
they've got
happen
these
to
special
have
frames.
Fusion here. If you would like me to read you a chapter,
I
I will
was
be more than
going to
happy to do that.
ask.
Yeah,
Pretty,
I was
pretty,
thinking about
please.
thinking
Oh,
about
you're
that.
amazing.
Let's let Yama sit down with his cup of coffee and have Delilah on his lap, and we'll have story time because I do know that you have to read some spunky diary pages as well. For those that have circumfusion, I just opened it up to page 12, so it's in the beginning of the book, chapter 5. And if you'd like to read along, I'd greatly appreciate it. So here it goes. Life is full of many mysterious wonders, but none so incredible as the human ability to manifest a seething anger in several paces after a perceived slight. Alice was beyond ticked. She hadn't even gotten to the end of the sidewalk outside of Sylvester's before had bawled in absolute rage. Her original thought was to head to the lab, but, well, she had an appointment to give Ethan a piece of her mind, and she was bound and determined to keep it. His abject insistence on this meeting had created a scheduling conflict. She had chosen him over the opening panel discussions for the symposium on fractal Z chromosome replication. She had swapped a professional engagement for a personal commitment to be present. Oh, sweat started beading on her forehead. The zenith of the sun shined down and revealed realities in a way Alice could not ignore. She looked down at her lovely to look at strappy sandals and thought about the number of city blocks she would have to cover to get to Ethan's apartment. I'm not, this is big capital letters, guys, not getting pit stains in this shirt or blisters on my heels huffing down to his fracking place. Even though it would take an extra 45 minutes, she posited, the air-conditioned streetcar would do her disposition well. She figured the cooling off period in passive travel would be enough to gather her senses before ripping Ethan a new one. Alice peered down at her watch, hoping she hadn't already missed the car heading down the Midtown line. Right on cue, the modern amenity, dressed in a vintage head, pulled up. She flashed her hold off and climbed aboard, quickly finding an empty, out-of-the-way seat where she could collect her thoughts. The silence was short-lived. Two men, caught up in a heated conversation, captured Alice's attention and piqued her curiosity. They seemed out of place, even for a town that famously blended and mixed whatever was on hand into a shared experience. Had Alice not personally witnessed the man holding an old-school boombox on his lap physically roll his eyes, his Australian accent carrying a hint of merriment and sarcastic mocking provided the audio to the visual. Where'd you read that, Yama? Bro, it's real. Plum Island is all about human experiments. It's a real island of Dr. Moreau shit. I don't like swearing comfort. The New Yorker accent did not match the man bun-wearing soccer player, but felt like he could speak on authority about the happenings on the island in Gardiner's Bay. I don't know, mate. The Aussie shook his head, unconvinced. Oh, it's real, Ozzy, said the New Yorker emphatically. It's real, all right. People go missing all the time. And here, recently, more and more, he said, bending down to adjust his soccer shin guard before popping back up and changing the subject like a distracted puppy. Dude, what you eating? Seriously, Ozzy, for sure. Very rude, very rude. Alice found the banter fascinating and could not help but eavesdrop. Come on, Yama. Do you honestly believe chimeras are being hatched and wandering about unattended? It was a legitimate question from a skeptical mind. All I'm saying, Ozzy, is humans get experimented on all the time. Just go down to the French Quarter after midnight and tell me I'm right. Let all the freaks go, and they just blend right in. Seriously, give me some of that chopped cheese, you schmuck. I'm dying here. Yama reached for the morsel. Alice silently contemplated what Yama had just said. The man wasn't exactly wrong. But through the prism of her experience, doing science was more nuanced and complicated. Understanding the inner workings of university endowments and research grants. For many scientists, just keeping the lights on often outweighed the questionable ethics of their methods in obtaining tangible results. Sadly, throughout history, sacrifices were made for the good of the species. Most people never think about the medications they take, the food they eat, the technology they use, or how all these things, making their lives better, came into existence. It's much easier going through life, concentrating on the immediate needs rather than questioning the inconvenient truths of the machinations and inner workings of how they matriculated. Alice drowned out the murmurings of others and allowed her thoughts to drift back to Ethan in their last discussion, when he had summoned his inner Michael Crichton Jurassic Park moment and asked, "Just because we can, should we?" The tone of his voice, replaying it again in her mind, it was different. In the heat of the moment, she found his words combative and abrasive. Now she questioned whether that was actually the case at all. Ethan's lines of questioning had been tap dancing on the raw nerve endings of unprotected insecurities Alice had been entertaining more and more as of late. His blunt assertions left her feeling vulnerable and defensive about her chosen discipline and the devotional field of emerging genetics. Listening to the two strangers poked at her memory of what he had actually said. There was a pensiveness in the cadence of his voice, an apprehension that only now, after hearing the concern of strangers about shady experimentation, she could process and actually understand. Thinking about the last round of data sets, that familiar queasiness in her gut returned, proven that they could. But in her excitement, thought about the if she should. The streetcar lurched and pulled Alice out of her reveries as it squeaked to a halt to allow two ladies dressed in colorful and flamboyant outfits to come aboard. The driver greeted them by name. "Why, if it isn't NFT Princess and Art Miss. How are you two doing? Up to mischief, no doubt. Bet you're off to go see the lovely Violetta sing. Yep, I caught her show last night. You're in for a real treat, ladies, a real treat. Go on back, get settled now. I'll wait." Watching the new arrivals shuffle past, heavy laden with baubles and ardent fan paraphernalia, was exactly the distraction Alice needed to snap her thoughts back towards a more pressing issue. Running through her mental disembarkment checklist, Alex patted her pockets and scanned her surroundings for errant belongings in preparation for the next stop. The last thing she wanted was to leave anything important behind and add to the abject awfulness of the day. Alice stood up and pulled the line to inform the driver that her destination had arrived. She walked past the two gentlemen who had inadvertently inspired her thinking through their back and forth, and smiled kindly at them before stepping off the streetcar. Feeling a tug on each strappy footfall, she silently sent a thought of gratitude to the universe for the way it bound humans together in random and unexpected ways along the path each person walked through life. Although she was still upset and needed to see Ethan eye to eye, her reasons for doing so had changed ever so slightly. End of chapter 5. I hope you enjoyed it.
Ooh, loved it. Loved it. How about you, Yamazuki? You're all in this piece. How you
Yeah,
doing?
now,
You're fucking Charles Dickens over here.
yeah, so did you read this because you didn't, I don't read books and I probably wasn't ever going to get to it. I'm just kidding.
Oh.
I'm like sitting here, I'm like, yeah, I should probably read this thing that's today on my counter. Fucking almost there. Yeah, but no, that was amazing.
It's so weird when you come back to, well, no, I mean, folks in the room right now know, but really combining all of the stories that the community had come together to kind of create a cohesiveness. But I forgot how many names we smashed into these sentences and how many conversations, because, people don't know that the first rough draft was written in about 10 days or less. But during that time period, Yama had a soccer game, and we had a great conversation in Leo's space about shin guards and getting scraped up the back end of your calf with cleats, which is decisively part of the soccer game. And it was such a thing to just kind of put in those pages. And I remember texting like an old Gen Z or Gen X, or I guess boomer at that point, would do. I actually took a picture with my phone of the stupid computer screen and sent it to Yama. And I said, I just put you in this story. I didn't want him to see the whole entire thing, but it was actually a screenshot from a phone picture, which made it all the more great, of his soccer game that he had that afternoon and the war wound that he still wore on his shin. It was very cool.
Now, did the Hattie doodle that had the shin guard marks from your request, did that make you read that part of the story?
Actually, it had nothing with it. I simply opened the book to the first chapter because I couldn't remember where we left off before. And I thought, you know what? We've never really read too much from the beginning. And I just opened it up, and it was halfway between chapter 4 and chapter 5. And so the universe conspired with us, because it's not only showing Hattie's Doodle, which came a year after the book was published on Amazon, but even more so, a year and a half to the day of your last soccer game. So, I mean, what are the freaking odds? I don't know. But
We just write these things,
No.
That's all we do. We just write them. We weave the spells. We cast it out into the ether. So it's like a love bomb, It's like we build the damn thing. We throw it. We walk away. We keep it moving. Fucking Johnny Appleseed over here. Sheesh. I told y'all serendipity abounds on the blockchain.
I see that Crazy Jack has his hands up. I'm going to bring him up
Does he?
because he is working
Oh,
on some
I'm not looking
projects.
at him.
And you know
Yes.
that Crazy is one of our very, very special dudes. And we want to make sure we can hear his story because I'm proud of him.
Yeah, get him in here. Thank you. Sorry, I'm looking at all these different screens, Sarah. I was looking at video streaming bits, and I realized what I did was I streamed from my one PC onto another via Twitch, and then through Vision back to Twitter.
So, in essence, you're telling me you took a picture with your phone on a computer screen to text to somebody else in a DM. I get it. I
Yes.
understand the struggles.
All right. Why is it not seamless yet?
Because it isn't. We need these points of friction to make sure that, we don't slide through life just thinking everything else is going to do it for us. We don't want to atrophy.
My study is a freaking mess because of it. Anywho, Crazy Jack, get on in here. What's going on, bud?
Not much, man. Not much.
How you doing, kiddo? Have you been working on what are you building today?
Some towers for rigs and stuff.
Towers and rigs are always good. Did you put a picture up top for us?
It's music by Terabyte.
So this is your Spotify. Have you ever heard Jay Lee sing? Crazy.
I heard about Terabyte sing a little bit. Terabyte sing a little bit too much Terabyte.
Yep, I know this is one of your favorites. I know because you post it frequently. Well, someday you're going to hear Jay Lee sing. I'm going to summon her eventually. I know she's feeding children probably right now. It's dinner time. But someday you're going to have her in your ecosystem. And there he goes. Did you see how quick that was? Yama Comfort. Yep.
Oh, he's a man. Look at him.
I love
He's
him.
just right on up. Does the thing. He just does the thing. Boom, boom.
We gotta get Crazy Jack obsessed with Vision as much as he's obsessed with those.
Exactly.
Because he will be going around to every space, posting me up in the nest and whatnot, just screaming Vision at them. I gotta talk to this Crazy Jack.
Speaking of Vision,
He'll be like, no, and he'll be like, no, Vision. No, don't care, Vision.
I will say, Yama.
Can we get a little Vision?
Yes, you can have the Yama Vision, but I will tell you, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but Jack's speaking has improved so much. He's visited the 7 or 8 spaces and making sure that he comes up. I got a text from his mom, and she is just so thrilled that all of his pocket family are supporting him. So I'm really proud of each and every one of you for giving that man time and space and the ability to test his skills.
Are you serious about that?
Yeah, very cool kid.
Huh.
I had to come up and comment because you had it on those. I'm cooking. I don't know if you can hear, but I'm just.
Oh, what's that sizzle? What do we got, Jay Lee? We cooking the burgers? Tell me about it.
Not just my youngest, her favorite. She likes them Hebrew Nationals. I think it's disgusting. She likes it.
Hot dogs. All right.
She likes to eat the outside of them, and then I put them back on the pan and have to cook them again. She likes them a certain way.
Crispy. So you're sitting there crisping them up the whole. You're freaking.
Yeah.
No.
And then I'll be making spaghetti.
Now, me and your daughter, if I was a kid again, we would be really good friends because she would just eat the outsides and then I would eat the insides. But then she'd be not happy because she wants you to grill it again. So we'd have to work out a deal where I get half of the insides and you can grow the other over and over again. That's, that's
My son,
Extravaganza.
my son just goes, he's like, spaghetti again? Oh, so funny.
All right.
Yeah, you hear him talking to me. It's loud over here. But I want to give the show so much love, and I always want to come in and support when I can. And I really, really enjoy this space. So keep doing what you're doing, you guys. We're making real difference here.
Jaylee, you are such a treasure, and what you're doing for your children, the sacrifices that you're making. Kids, man, they're just going to grow up and be superstars. You are such an empathetic and compassionate mom in the way that you're looking at them and saying, you know what? I know what they need. And I think it's great. It's so, so wonderful that they have you. And I didn't expect you to come up because dinner time is sacred. Kids that are hangry are no fun. and all of the parents in this room know exactly what I'm talking about. But I just wanted to say I treasure your presence, and we see you in the audience. We see everybody in the audience today. Obviously, the Green Dot Nation always comes out and is ready and willing and able to have story time. And I see so many new faces too. I hope that you're inspired in some random way to pick up your pen and tell your story, because the truth of it is that only you can tell it. And, when you surround yourself with people that are doing stuff and writing stuff and willing to listen to your rough drafts and help you, kind of coaxed out those words that are hidden maybe sometimes behind the ink on the page, those are the kinds of things that iron sharpens iron. And we all, learn in the process. To teach us to learn twice. So I just encourage each and every one of you to be inspired, to look at the tools that you have on your fingertips. If it's not a story, maybe you like to cook. Maybe it's a recipe that you're supposed to put in. It is a story. Exactly. Linda Yaccarino, the CEO of Twitter, or now X, she posted her family recipe for meatballs. And if you're from the South, Sicilian,
I don't
yes,
hear about it. Get that shit
I
out
know.
of the That's okay, but
She puts currants or withered raisins in the meatballs. But the story, I know, right? Poor Yama. Yama's
yeah,
struggling.
I saw it and I was like, no, the pine nut's fine, not the raisins. Nobody wants raised meat. What the hell's wrong with you?
But you have to understand why, because sometimes the cuts of meat were so tough, that there are certain chemical properties in those random fruits that help digestion too.
It's
So
got the good
it's history. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The
Just like,
history of the recipe.
well, just like in Georgia somewhere, probably in Pooler, Georgia still, there's like families who make deviled eggs with ketchup.
Dude.
That's like that's what was on hand, because that's how my mom made it until she went to a little church and the bougie church ladies were like, what is this? And it embarrassed her, and then she's just made the best deviled eggs ever after that. But the story is, because she, her mama's mama happened to be born on the wrong side of the tracks, the poverty line, that was the narrative they were given, which was a make do with what's on hand and mend, the rest type mentality, which is also contributing its verse to the larger narrative, which is what my new post is about, which says, contribute your verse to the sacred timeline. We need all hands on deck for this type of operation or obligation, I guess, for the future. For most of the folks I've read, their census is that only art saves us. Like, it's the only thing that prevails after we're gone. We see it in the sacred monuments from antiquity, the ancient ruins that they're discovering, just chilling. We haven't even the surface on hollow earth theory, people, but this is not Tinfoil Hat Showdown. This is Comfort's Couch. And we've had such a great panel of folks today. Holy moly. I mean, I couldn't do it without you, Sarah and you, Mazda. And thank you, Miss Jaylee, for popping up here. But man, getting to talking about process and how he loves story. That's the line I want to continue to draw through the heart of every creative, if we can, if we can, like bring on the dancers, gather around. We got a story to tell. Even catching fish is in of itself one of the greatest, hero's journeys known to our species. And I hope, though, Sarah, one day that I can figure out a ley line towards the moral mosaic um, in the narrative process. I would love to have the characters be cracked open, and their moral biases exposed, so that we can practice that stand-in type of affirmation, so that we're more ready to kind of dismiss what we already inherently assume of the world, and remember that what matters the most is each other. So if we can come to a concession about what needs to happen, versus us just getting all in our emotions, being more creaturely than comforting.
Well,
Um,
I will tell you, there are loads of ley lines in Michigan. We even have a Stonehenge under the water in Lake Michigan. But I will tell you, Comfort, your journey is fascinating to watch. And I think right now you're learning to identify those little boulders. And you need to learn to identify the boulders before you can crack them open to find the geode. And it's so much fun to watch as a storyteller. You unearth, what do we call it? The reckless gods from within, so that you can do your shamanic dance around the campfire. You're you're being prepared. You're being annealed, as they say. You're being cast in the fire and out of the fire, pounded against, heavy surfaces in order to be able to be prepared for that kind of battle that you're going to have with the pen, I'm sure. You don't want to go into battle with untested steel, but it's fun to watch from the cheap seats that, your Sisyphean task, every day has showed you new boulders and learning to identify the ones that have crystal caves inside and beautiful pure gems. And I'm thankful to be able to be a part of that process and just to watch. And I wanted to say thank you too for inviting me to be your co-host today. It's always a pleasure to be a wingman. And yeah, we heard a lot of wonderful things today. I took a lot of notes actually, and you gave Haddy a platform that he really needed to have, especially at this time, this spot on the timeline of history, to be able to recapture the narrative that had slipped away from that man. You gave him the gift of a lifetime, and I think it was beautiful. So I just wanted to say thank you for that.
I mean, no, thousandfold, Sarah. Like I mentioned earlier, the creative deserves a hand up at the table instead of a hand out by the door. It's important that it was at the head of the conversation. Plato talks about it. I'm always going back to this. That the polis wasn't just the city state, but it represented the body of people, and further down, the body itself. So that the only mindset fit to rule is that curious mindset, the philosophical mindset, which is the mindset of childlike wonder and curiosity. Because that's where love comes from. It's the lover of wisdom. But that wisdom is gleaned from the annuals, from the stories and the engravings, those long nights spent around the bonfire, feet up on the couch, or just hanging out in the makerspace. Those things, our ancestors have been doing. We're doing the most thing that we could ever be doing. And I'm forever filled with that righteous indignation, that we are on the right path. And if we can get that minting press going, I think we will be able to inspire others to the greater potential of what the blockchain, whatever this thing is. It doesn't even have a proper terminology for it yet. It's pocket family, whatever that is. It's the last
Pocket
bastion
family.
of humanity, right? It's the last bastion of humanity. At least in my crazy story. But hey, we all got a story to tell, and I also have a story to tell. It's actually, if I go back to it, bum, 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 bum. Nope, I've been messing around and lost my place. There he is, the Spunkster. I don't think I forgot about you, bud. I know we usually talk about you first, but we're right where we want you. Got everybody all primed for this week's diary entries from way down in the junk hole. Oh man, just watching Spunky and Dumpy and the whole thing just continue to build upon itself and discover new friends, realize, that what he was searching for has been around him the whole time. And maybe something more was just right around the corner. But this is day one in Spunky's diary entry to his diary called Willie. Willie, this whole place is a mess. Sure, it's called the junk hole, but that doesn't mean it has to stink to high heavens with the constant danger of collapsing in an avalanche of stuff. I've got to do something. Day 2. Where to start, Willie? Everything I touch can cause a domino principle. Pick up trash here, see some trash fall down there. Swipe this here, wipe it there. There seems to be no beginning or end to this gargantuan mound of stuff. The following day. Okay, Willie, I started alphabetizing, but I don't know if that's the way to go. An apple core, do I put it with the A of apple or the C of core? Or I first do food or maybe non-food. And is an apple core food or non-food? Why am I saying, what is this? Why am I even saving an apple core? The next day. Different approach, Willie. I started grouping everything with the same color. That went well for a little while. But that damn apple core, that was light green this morning, well, it's brown now. Is there no end to my despair? Following day. New days, new ways, Willie. I decided to move everything outside, make a big pile, empty out the inner hole, so to speak, and then gradually move the things back inside that are worth keeping. Keep the things that speak to my heart, I guess. Well, here we go, Willie. Day 6. Holy aioli, Willie. It's damn cold outside. It's so cold it can freeze the boobies off a dump. I'm not going to start trotting in and out with all this garbage. There must be a way to solve this conundrum with Paper Pal. Day 7. Well, Willie, it's empty inside and it's a lot warmer outside. Who would have known the garbage burns so well? I can even smell apple pie. Must be the apple core's cooking to a crisp. I like it a lot better in here. Now it's very spunk shui. Look at all this new space. That's the end of Spunky's week, as he has discovered that he can burn his trash to keep him nice and toasty during the wintertime. Who knows what our crazy duo will get up to, who they will find. Tune in next week for Spunky's riveting diary entry from the jungle to the couch and to your hearts and minds. It's such a fun read. And he has a southern accent, so it's out of control.
I think it's cool how not just the Spunky story, for folks that don't know the IO team, they're out of the Netherlands. And when they commissioned, I think it's Michel, yes? I'm not sure. Yes. To write the story, he is a well-renowned storyteller there. And it's kind of interesting because you have such this cornucopia of different styles and different stories and different genres. So if you read an excerpt from yours, it's, a sci-fi, and then obviously the Circumfusion is kind of an amalgam of all of these different voices and projects in the digital overlay. But then you have this character that has gotten to, has a very, very specific story, but is being told through diary pages for right now. And it's interesting because, here you are, wherever you are in the United States. I don't want to dox you or anything, but you're reading the story and you look at all the faces and spaces today and how many time zones are represented. And in the recording, how many people from around the world in our Funky or IO team or Sketchy, ERP, all of the different communities that are represented here. We've got the endangered groups and obviously the apocalyptic apes. I can go on and on. All of these from different projects, right? And you have this culmination of people that are coming together over a story that we all share, because the people behind it are the ones that we're supporting, and we want to kind of, help in building their goal and meeting their achievements and celebrating those wins. And so it's just really fun to be able to watch how it unfolds and how the speed bumps are fixed in real time and how the community comes together to make sure that that story is bound, that the spine is strong, as they say. So I just thank you for reading it, and I appreciate all of the folks. I know it's in the middle of the night and you future dwellers And I just hope that all your dreams catch you, the good dreams, and that you do take time to recharge and rest and take care of yourself. And if you are struggling, each and every one of you, if there's something that just isn't setting with you right, I know that it's very difficult in the real world. Some people just don't understand our imaginary family here in our pocket family, the people that live on our phone and in our pockets that we carry around with us. But you might not be understood in the real world. And in the digital overlay, you have people that believe in you and believe in your crazy amazing and want to see you succeed. And if you need help, just reach out, because you can look to the left and look to the right. Yes, you see cartoon characters as PFPs or blue wig wearing, people to reach out to us if you're struggling, especially because this time of year, a lot of folks aren't getting the sunlight that they need. Some of you are snowed in. Some of you are up to your ears with debt or just really struggling. Just know that there are people that care about you. So thank you for reading Comfort. I don't know when your space is going to be tying up, but I just want to say thank you again.
Yeah, no, thank you and the rest of y'all for helping build this stage. Can't be stuck on the state without raising the stage, and there's no use in pointing out the flawed leadership of our ecosystem without having something else occupy that space. And I hope we can all build something together that helps inspire more people than have them get taken advantage of, especially in the blockchain sense of things, because people are, or the artist has been underneath the boot for quite some time now. But for once in a lifetime, we have some of the most disruptive and bleeding edge technology that human beings have had the pleasure of wielding at our fingertips, shrinking the lag time between what we can envision and what we can create. And that's further amplified exponentially so when we work together. Sarah and I were able to kind of cobble the bits and scraps and pieces of things and the whole thing, the whole hurricane, the whole process, pretty much to physical copies in how many months did it take, Sarah? 6 months?
Yeah, it was really weird. I mean, the scaffolding was, you just kind of started it, but the thing is getting it down on the page, that was the hardest part. So sorry about the dogs. Just a moment.
Oh yeah, no worries. But working on my own work for the amount of time that I've been working on it, and then at the same time having something completed because we were working with other people in a team that was formed, with the same star. Essentially, we had the same vector, so everything was streamlined in that regard. But I do plan on closing the space soon. However, I might have an excerpt to share with y'all. I won't read all of it, but it touches on the line of kind of what happens to the creative when they kind of have to work the way they often have us work, which is for most, they don't escape the McFryer. This is not about the McFryer. I don't want copyright infringement, but it's a wonderful piece that I think it's okay to read to y'all. It's called The Ballad of El Sucio. I'll wait for Sarah to get back.
I am here. The dogs are in the background, so I'm just listening.
Oh.
And so, yes, I just wanted to make sure I didn't want everybody else to hear the big dogs.
I'll hear them now. Precious, precious little bears. Oh my God, how funny is this though, Sarah? So each chapter I have a quote at the beginning. God, my the stars are aligning. Um, the opening quote for this chapter is the Terence McKenna quote that I've been bloviating all over folks about, where it's the artist's task is to save the soul of mankind. Anything less is a dithering while Rome burns. If the artist cannot find the way, then the way cannot be found. Terence McKenna. This is the Ballad of El Sucio. Daydream. As Ruckus spins the yarn of his fate, a paint-spattered footlocker opens within the vaults of Conway's mind palace. Inside, a projector clicks on, casting the remarkable tale onto the rickety wheel of his imagination. Lost somewhere in a daydream beyond the bread ovens, condiment lines, prep stations, slicers, and wash stations, Ruckus's words generate a flourishing realm, populated with a pantheon of gods and minuscule entities. Of them, Zoros was the mightiest. His birth broke through the fourth dimension. However, as the universe unraveled, the indomitable one recognized his fault, and wanting to save the apex of reality, mended the wake of his arrival by folding it with a whisper and rippling a thunderous cascade along the curtain of existence. Then a roar of cosmic chaos as he slapped the fallen heavens between space and time, sprinkling life throughout the stars. Sandwiched between Zoros's perpetual birth from the abyss and his eternal return to the void beyond, all of existence danced to the tune of his cosmic drama. On one occasion, a certain patch of light caught his eye, and wanting to enjoy his favorite star before he passed through the Titan's hourglass, Zoros selected a pinprick of light from the blackberried bush of creation. In his possession, the star blossomed into Morag, the beautiful, presiding over the hearts and desires of all creatures. She was Zoros's true love. However, during the lustful revelry of their timeless bliss, the unbound consequences of Zoros's actions continued festering within the womb of reality. As with his arrival, plucking her from the heavens left a chasm in the dimensional curtain, threatening the complete collapse of crucial celestial scaffolding. In a selfless instant, Zoros tore third itself and hurled it into the wound within the vacuum of space-time. At its epicenter, a singularity of cosmic energies gathered and soaked into Zoros's makeshift patch. After, the second of Zoros's children came into being. Within the microtubule webbing stitching reality together, Gabriel's consciousness woke to the sparkle of several stars orbiting a black hole. Over time, the godling gathered enough strength to bend the universe, escaping the entanglement of his cradle, and returned to Zoros's side. However loyal to his father, Gabriel, the gardener of the universe, who devours planets and galaxies, mends the breaks and tears in the wake of his creator, secretly fell in love with Morag, and she with him. One after another, the other gods sprang up like weeds from a dripping faucet. From their lineages of ancestral glory, the messengers blossomed. The planet, capable of growing consciousness, had a pantheon of messengers. The most favored of them was Tobias. Unlike the rest, he was their king, with the purest bloodline, dating back to the dawn of gods. Among the oldest and most cryptic was El Sucio. His presence on Earth marked forthcoming doom. Although his actions mirrored a cantankerous old man, and thus loathed by the eternal youth of the other messengers, his speed was matched by none under the moon. Blessed by one of the night goddesses, El Sucio could travel at breakneck speeds under the gentle kiss of her light. The problem, El Sucio preferred not to go out at night. Geezer's gourmet chiplet shop. The fantastic spray of turkey caresses his apron, pulling Ruckus from his vivid daydream. What am I doing, he asks. The shift manager slams several blocks of cheese on the makeshift table. What are you mumbling about now? Get back to work. After having his imaginative train of thought broken, Ruckus returns to the monotonous and underappreciated everydayness of being a Geezer's gourmet chiplet shop employee. Back and forth, with every push-pull of chemically separated turkey meat, he feels himself becoming less human, machine. Slowly, his artistic sense of expression dulls along the grinding gray of the stainless steel societal cheese grater, slicing away the remnants of his youthful shine. Damn, that was dope. I need to write that one down before I forget. Oh, there's another customer. I bet it's a turkey on rye, no tomato, extra mayo. Ruckus peels the nitrile disposable glove into the refuse bin of end meats and tomato tops. An obtuse man, panting from the summer's heat, places an order. Turkey on rye, extra tomatoes, no mayo, a large diet soda, 3 pickles, 3 bags of Cool Ranch tortilla chips, and 4 fresh baked cookies. It's not all for me. Some of this is for my coworkers. I gotta get some of the extra pounds off of me before vacation. I can't be right all the time, he thinks to himself. Good for him. Looks like he's trying to lose some weight. Must be nice to go on vacation. Ruckus pivots to the cramped rectangle of the Geezer's make table. Shit, the trash can's overflowing. Next to it, in the doorway, his impudent manager holds a frivolous amount of meat to slice. I need a fucking vacation, Ruckus thinks to himself and shakes his head. Why, God? Why do I allow myself this suffering? Why must I continue to be forced to do the extra amounts of labor for a pauper's pay. His thoughts trail into completing the order. Well, the job has some perks, free food, but the slicing must help me, the slicing. The dread spreads across his brow and along his mist-smeared mayo into the trash can. Ruckus balls up the leftover paper, banks it off the fouled sandwich, already teetering on the edge. It falls to the floor. Shit, I just mopped that. El Sucio. Day after day, an innumerable amount of processed meats, veggies, and blocks of cheese are sacrificed upon the altar of the slicer to appease the gods while providing for the masses. With its rickety rigging and ill-placed location near the table's edge, this Victorian-era artifact is more suitable for cutting clear through a rational human being than bushels of lettuce. Ruckus places his hand on the icy Iron Maiden. Will this be it? He asks. Is this when the infernal machine takes my good arm? How will I draw? How will I create? How the hell am I ever going to get out of this place, absent from a body bag? Soon, Ruckus weeps from the sweet demise of a bag of onions. As their lustful spray engulfs the whole restaurant, the madness overwhelms him. He prays for release from his servitude. Sadly, no one hears the pleas of a lowly Geezer's Gourmet Chipwood Shop employee. He looks at the meat-smeared clock on the wall. Time for a shift change. I wonder which manager's coming in, Ruckus says, leaning back from a stack of sliced offerings. The delivery phone starts ringing violently off the hook. Alas, there's no driver in the store to take the call. Well, there is one other Is he there? Could he answer the call? El Sucio huddles around some makeshift food salvaged from scraps. Ruckus hears him grumbling with delight towards the back crevices of the shop. Finally noticing the phone, the crusty one turns around with food dribbling down his sullen cheeks like a mongrel from his scraps bowl. The ancestral attainment of being human has left him. All that remains are the feral instincts of survival. Hold, he says, and sets down the receiver, disappearing into the back. Soon the other banshees ring, echoing to the hallway, startling Sucio's roosting pigeons. Ruckus looks to see if he needs help with the phones, but all that remains is a grease trail and a fleeting shadow into the alleyway. Not surprised by El Sucio's reluctance, Ruckus places the customers on hold and returns to the labors. Ugh, the slicing, Zoros the slicing, my all-mortal sacrifice. Tobias crashes through the kitchen door with a clash of thunder and answers each call with his booming voice. In another life, perhaps he was a game show host. But this day and age, he was riding a scooter through college campus. It's a great day at Geezer's Gourmet Chipwood Shop. How may I take your order? And before Ruckus can reload the altar, Tobias bags up the deliveries and is out the door as Sucio's lingering trail dissipates into the alleyway, descent into madness. As the clock ticks and the time talks, no manager arrives at the lonely sandwich shop. The tension and anxiety of running the shift without proper economic compensation quarrels inside Ruckus's head. So much slicing, what do I do? I'm by myself, what do I do? So many customers, what do I do? The phones are ringing, what do I do? I need to use the restroom, number 2. What do I do? Just leave. What do I do? Just leave. What do I do? His fiery hatred of this place boils between the squeezing of ever-shrinking walls, unleashing a rant which would have burnt the place down to the ground had the years of grind not insulated the owners against their workers' pleas. Just when he can no longer contain his composure, the detested ring of the front door chimes. Zoros, help me. To no surprise, the rest of the managers are working at a seasonal catering event, and before him, the late arriving shift manager blankly stares, seeing the task list of things to prep for the week. Another customer drags through the door, interrupting their staring contest. I'll let him handle it. I'll let him break it on in nice and easy. Ruckus returns to his duties. Unlike the rest of the upper echelon, Demetrius is not really a manager. His place in the pecking order is the same as Ruckus, but the more work, no increase in pay, and the headache of dealing with Ruckus. As with most employees, they hired him to cut the grass, but wanted him to clean the pool for free. The shift keeps an even flow of busy and stagnant bouts of customer interaction, coupled with a constant series of sacrifices upon the altar. It's a default mode of existence, fertilized by a perpetual consumption of chips, cookies, extra meats, and liters of cola. It is their good works fueling the fires in the bowels of the hungry masses. Maybe I could Tom Sawyer him into slicing. Ruckus greets Demetrius with several compliments and socially engineered talking points. and with the ease of a Renaissance artist, he convinces Demetrius to slice, while he deli paper between the thin slices of salami capicola. After the first box, Demetrius complains about his arm, and they decide to switch. In a game of Russian roulette, back and forth the blade spins and the juices fly. Ruckus handles the roast beef, and Demetrius slices the cheese. Some provolone clumps together and forms projectiles firing at random against the everydayness of his economic enslavement. Once again, it's Ruckus's turn. He takes hold of the slicer. On the other side, his hand hovers 2 inches away from the violently rotating blade. Hours into the tour, within the confines of the sandwich shop, a claustrophobic madness bubbles to the surface. With no time for a break, detrimental mindsets sprout along avenues of personal judgment, leading to a powerful combination of ill-tempered derangement and sensory distortion. Ruckus cranks up the radio and sings at the top of his lungs. After 12 tracks, the 2 servants reach the last sacrifice on the grease-dribbled task list. Fire it up, Demetrius. Let's get going. Ruckus takes his turn before the altar and slams down a 5-pound ham onto the rickety slicer. Before switching it on, he prays to the mighty gods of old. Please protect your children who pointlessly sacrifice the pre-packaged life force to the others in your armor. Ruckus flips the malicious red switch at the back of the machine. Just then, a deafening metal grating screeches past both their eardrums. There's a loud crack as a bolt flings from behind, strikes overhead, and ricochet bubbling vat of marinara and meatballs, sending the 2 employees to the floor. Soon, the slicer's violent vibration shakes the altar's foundation, and wobbling past the metrics of its design, the metal table loses one of its legs. The maniacal device slams into the tabletop and breaks the rotating blade free from its constraints. It slides to the legless side of the counter, toward Demetrius. Ruckus freezes, unable to look away from the terror mirrored in Dimitri's eyes as the slicer heads towards him. Don't blink. The bonfire dances the details of Ruckus's story. What happened to Demetrius? Conway asks. Just then, a blurred shadow raced out of the kitchen and pulls Demetrius from a work-related demise. I looked on with a confused sense of reverence as El Sucio showed more courage and humanity than I could ever muster. To think that someone I loathed could actually find the courage to stand up and do what I was too afraid to do. It was then that I understood why I loathed El Sucio. I feared I would end up like him. So I packed my bags and I moved to the island. Best decision I ever made. Ruckus turns toward the marsh to keep seeing his tears for the amount of progress that he'd made since arriving. While listening to the courage of El Sucio, a rusted door breaks open and falls off its hinges in the back alley of Conway's mine palace. Like bats leaving a belfry, vision shards of fleeting faces, vaguely familiar mementos of heroism and images of courageous adventures flutter past him. Behind the rusted door, Conway finds a postcard addressed from Mr. Ben Penstone. Penstone. Where have I heard that name before? In a zip, his awareness flickers to a tin of tea, sitting atop a pedestal in a demolished checkered floored room. The lid opens and releases a small storm cloud. As it floats above the ruins, it grows to cover the sky, then releases flood across the fields of forgotten things. In their wake, the receding waters coalesce into drops, dripping onto bloody concrete floors. There you go, freaks. That's a whole bunch of absurdity. Thank you for being my captive audience. Whoever's still left in the room. Did I bloviate it out?
Yeah, quickly,
Almost did.
raise your hand if you're still awake, please. Just kidding.
Dude, it's a couch. You can take a little nap.
I pulled up Spunky. He has his hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. I just wanted to compliment Comfort on another Comfort's Couch spunky storytelling extravaganza space. It is awesome. I really enjoyed the space. I was not maybe that vocal, but I was listening to you guys, and I think it was an awesome space.
Yeah,
It's
bro.
30 minutes past 12, so I'm going down.
Yeah. No, I gotta shut the space down as well. I just wanted to bloviate people. I just want to let the people know that we cannot no longer allow the creative mind to be shackled to the meat slicer or the McFryer. You know, there has to be a better way, or else the way cannot be found. This has been another episode of Comfort Scout Share. Thank you so much. As always, you crushed it with your input, your knowledge. Yowzers. We got all the beautiful people in the room. Miss J. Lee, thank you for taking the stage. Would love to get you on one day to talk about your process and how you craft story.
And your Muzzer Vision same time.
And your Mazda Vision, same time. There's plenty of room. We can get more frames. There's plenty of room.
Yeah, I'm just trying to use you to get J. Lee on your Muzzer Vision. Yeah.
Oh man, what a space. What a space. I thank you for being a part of my process. Till next time, freaks. Make sure you're drinking plenty of water, staying mindful of your posture, and that you're continuing to be positive and you're loving your lives.
It's schnitzel time. Gotta wake up early, put the chicken on the press, get the bread it up. We gotta try our best. It's schnitzel time.